Hey guys and gals, I just want to um, talk for a minute about some things that have been coming up on a different channel that I run, and questions about pharmacogenetics and what your DNA can tell you, because I want people to fully understand what the options are in terms of what you can get done. And there's some testing that can be done. There is some ways that you can support your body best. There are some arguments that you can have that help you prepare yourself to go in and get other testing done. And I think it's important just to know what your options are. One of the biggest things that I've been hearing lately is how people are struggling with things like vitamin D absorption. And so I want to talk about why that might be happening and how to navigate around it, because it'll be important for long-term your health. Your vitamin D status, even, and I know a lot of people don't put a lot of stock in this anymore, but even the CDC showed that your vitamin D status would make a difference on whether or not you ended up hospitalized for something as simple as the flu and the common cold. And so I think we really need to start paying attention to vitamin D status, to our magnesium status, to our overall health status, and what we might be needing, and where we might need to support. Um, Obviously, this birth date is not correct. I am not 1,000 years old. But let's get into this test. Now, they have changed the format of this test since I originally took it back in 2020. And there are some updates to all of the tests and even what they're testing. And I can pull that up in a minute and look at it if you would like. Just let me know. And if you're coming on live, let me know where you're from. This report, ones that have a bright spot, it's not going to really have an impact. If it has a check mark, it's beneficial to you. If it has 3 dots, that's an area where we need to be concerned, and we need to focus on restoring health first. So when we consider that, you get this priority table. And when we look at it overall, my areas that I need to super be focused on are methylation, detoxification, inflammation, oxidative stress. And oxidative stress, inflammation, detoxification, and methylation unfortunately all go together, but they are different SNPs in your genetics that play a role. And part of this also plays a role in vitamin and mineral metabolism and drug metabolism. So we're going to talk about that. And then insulin sensitivity and bone health. Insulin sensitivity is the next one. Always, as a female, we're concerned about bone health. Lipid metabolism for how well we mobilize fat and how well our body digests it. Then you get a nice report summary of here are some areas for you to focus on, and here are the things to do, and here are the things to avoid. And that's true for every single section. And then we get into the actual SNPs, what the allele genetic variations could be, what your result is, and the impact level that has on you. So if you look at my genetics for methylation, I've got 1, 2, 3 that are in a moderate category, 1 that has no impact, 1 that is beneficial, and 3 that are low impact. So overall in this area, I kind of have a problem and I need to be concerned. This ApoE3, E4, if this were E4, this could mean that you've got some toxicity building up. There's some inability to control your cholesterol naturally, and you may be someone who needs to consider use of a medication. Luckily for me, it's only a moderate impact, and my other genetics in that area are fine. When it comes to detoxification, and again, so methylation, you'll hear Gary Brecka talk about this MTHFR and the 677 and the 1298. And he talks about the 677 more commonly because about 60% of the population has this mutation, about 40% have the 1298 variation. This is something that he talks about, but he doesn't ever talk about the rest of these. And the rest of these Methylation genetics require a different type of support than just methylated B vitamins. Yes, they also require methylated B vitamins, but they need extra, and we'll talk about that. So the detoxification pathways, as you can see, I'm missing. The gene is either there, it's not, mine or not there on the two that's a possibility for. So that is a big problem, and I have to be aware of that. So I regularly do liver detoxes to support my overall health. And then when we talk about inflammation, now this is an important key factor that I want everyone to know. All of these inflammation markers, if these come up as being a problem area for you, every single one of these can be tested in your blood work regularly. And if they come up as a genetic problem, a genetic issue for you, having them tested in your blood work, this gives you the argument for that, because it takes most people 9 years and 5 doctors to get a diagnosis of an autoimmune disorder when we can see it show up in the blood work sooner. We just aren't actually testing for it. So if we start testing these markers because genetically you're predisposed, we would have an indication more quickly as to how we need to manage your system. And then we get into this oxidative stress. And as you can see, almost all of these for me are a moderate impact. So I have to take a lot of antioxidants. And that's just something that I have gotten used to. I don't do a great job at conjugating glutathione. That's this GPX1. And I need to support that better. On the insulin sensitivity, I have a couple of genetics here that are moderate impact, so I need to obviously watch for that. I don't carry the gene for hemochromatosis, but my mother has hemochromatosis, so this is something that I will watch out for. I am a slow processor of caffeine, and I am a very slow processor of polyunsaturated fatty acids. I am not salt sensitive, and that is genetic. So if you are salt sensitive, we can test that in your genetics. I have a moderate impact for bitter taste. Oddly, mine has impacted me in a way that I enjoy the taste of bitter foods. Super dark chocolate. I love things like arugula, kale, all of the spicy greens that are known to be bitter to most people. I like all of those. So in that impact, it has helped me. For a lot of people that have this medium to high impact, they do not like vegetables at all. And so we have to retrain their taste buds. It is possible. It just takes a little bit longer. And you can see that lactose intolerance, I shouldn't have a problem with it, but I have had a problem processing dairy my entire life. I am lacking an enzyme. Gluten intolerance, this indicated that I needed to have the test done for celiac. I am celiac. I found out at age 32. It was fantastic. Vitamin A needs supported, and so I have to take extra amounts of vitamin A, and that plays a role in how you absorb vitamin D. And if you look at this CYP2R1, I have a low number of vitamin D receptors, and I do not conjugate vitamin D from cholesterol and UV light very well. And for those of you that have said, I can't believe you would tell someone to use a tanning bed. If somebody can make vitamin D from UV light therapy, it is better than taking a supplement in most cases. And truly, the mechanism of converting vitamin D into a usable format from cholesterol and sunlight happens through UVA and UVB exposure. So a tanning bed is not out of the question. That is science. And then I have another genetic down here that also says you have a low number of receptor sites. You're going to need to basically overdose with vitamin D. I don't metabolize B vitamins well. I need support here, and I don't have the gene to make vitamin C. So I have to work on that. Lipid metabolism, I have a genetic that is beneficial for that. I do have to be a little bit careful with this ApoE. Basically, I can overdose on the wrong kind of estrogen. So then it goes into like what you should do with each one of the genetics. So because I have this beneficial here, this would what you would do at alpha linoleic acid is good for me still. And if you want to make sure that you're getting proper VLDL-C and LDL-C levels, they respond poorly to statin therapy. So if somebody came to me and said, we think you should take a statin drug, I could say, well, my genetics say not to. And here's that report. So I'm not going to do that. So this is part of the pharmacogenetics. The ApoE3, so this E2 carriers have lower total cholesterol levels overall in general. They might have a protective effect against cardiovascular disease. E2 carriers are not immune to lipid imbalances, though, and raised triglycerides. So, have to be careful with that. And it says here, make sure that your carbohydrate intake is moderated. Focus on complex carbs only. So that means things like vegetables, even more than fruits, and more than even grains, especially if that grain has been processed. When we get into methylation, I've got a whole host of issues here. So it goes through each one and what it does again. And at the very bottom, it gives me my recommendation. I have to ensure adequate magnesium intake. And in the literature, when you look at managing somebody's ability to methylate, because COMT is part of methylation, magnesium may be what they need. And the traditional doses in the literature, anywhere from 200 to 420 milligrams. But there are some people who can tolerate magnesium all the way up to 1,200 milligrams and not have loose stools, especially if they're varying the types of magnesium that they take. And that may help overall throughout their entire body decrease inflammation. Especially if we have somebody who has anxiety, magnesium L-threonate may help those methylated B vitamins help support brain be less anxious. Does that make sense? So we really have to understand what's happening here. Decrease alcohol intake and implement stress management strategies, and taking that L5-methyl tetrahydrofolate. You'll see it on labels as L5-MTHF. And then vitamins like B2, B6, B9, and B12. The MTHFD1 choline is needed. Notice it doesn't say a methylated B vitamin, it says choline specifically. And there are some instances where SAMe is recommended as well, because that will help your body use the methyl donor better. So just be aware of that. It's not always just methylated vitamins. There are other cofactors that you may need. In this detoxification pathway, I not only eat a lot of cruciferous vegetables, but I supplement with DIM and sulforaphane. Allium vegetables are also recommended. So I do cycle garlic. I don't take it consistently because that will eventually weed out some of the good bacteria in your gut. And you basically overdose on the garlic and you create an imbalance or SIBO in the gut. And when we look at the recommendations, again, you can see, make this a high priority. Decrease the load on your detoxification by decreasing exposure to environmental procarcinogens, smoked and char-grilled foods, pesticides, and other pollutants. A variety of fruits and vegetables, preferably organic. Emphasis on daily intake of cruciferous allium vegetables. And DIM, sulforaphane, resveratrol, curcumin. But curcumin has to be cycled. You cannot take it constantly. It does overstress the liver when you do. Inflammation, same thing. And again, all of these are blood markers that can be tested regularly. And with these genetics, I get mine tested every 6 months. And my insurance now covers it because we've submitted this genetic testing to them. Now, if you change insurance carriers, you'll have to resubmit and get that approval for that. Increase omega-3 fatty acids, decrease saturated fatty acids, and increase antioxidants, right? Avoidance of smoking, super important. So it goes through all of these things of what to do, and again, tells you overall this is what you should do. I supplement with omega-3s. I regularly take ginger in essential oil form. I occasionally take turmeric, but I don't stay on it. Anthocyanins are things, and resveratrol. This is the red berries, the peel of the grapes that are red or black. That's what these are. So I focus on eating those when they are in season and organic. When they're not in season, I focus on supplementation. The Mediterranean style diet, that's what I focus on. Oxidative stress is another one where I have significant issues. And again, towards an increased risk for poor antioxidant status and related oxidative stress drivers. This is a high priority area. Again, focusing on omega-3 fatty acids, focusing on a Mediterranean diet, focusing on moderate intensity exercise or antioxidants both before and after, making sure you're taking plenty of amino acids and getting enough protein, those kinds of things. And it says these are the next tests. I don't always follow this because some of these tests are expensive. They aren't covered by your insurance, and I can look in your blood work and see what's happening. Supposedly, I won't have to worry about bone health, but I am a female, so I do worry about it because we know that females lose more bone mass than males. And then when we get into insulin sensitivity, I have a couple of here that are maybe not so great. Saturated fats are hard for my body to break down, so monounsaturated fats is my best bet. So like coconut oil, not a great fat for me because my body's going to have trouble digesting it, and it could push me towards being insulin resistant. T alleles on these have been associated with less weight loss in response to diet and lifestyle intervention. So this is an important one to test because this is our person also that's probably going to exhibit some issues with leptin resistance, GLP-1 lowered status, and may need supplementation from time to time. But those supplements should be, again, cycled on and off. And leptin should be measured in the blood because it can be. And then looking at this, this makes it more likely that I have a higher waist to hip ratio, which is also more prone to obesity, cancer, etc. And so I just need to be careful here. Again, food responsiveness, polyunsaturated fatty acids, I don't metabolize well, so really monounsaturated fatty acids are my best bet. I need to make sure that I'm regularly continuing to eat things that are bitter in taste because otherwise I could become prone to not liking them. And I need to avoid gluten. So this is one of the tests that we do. And it talks about gut health down here too, lactose intolerance, gluten intolerance, and it gives you some other indications, and then vitamin metabolism. Let's talk about this CYP2R1 and the GC with the two different variables, because this came up. Individuals with a GG genotype have been shown to be almost 3.7 times more likely to be insufficient in vitamin D. Literally, your vitamin D status can be related to your genetics. Individuals placed on cholecalciferol may be associated with lower serum vitamin 25 hydroxy D concentration than expected, meaning these people don't respond as well to supplements. So we need to find a different way to support them than cholecalciferol. And there are different ways. We just have to find it. And then when we talk about this little one down here, this is associated with lower D binding protein and lower serum levels of vitamin D. It may increase the risk for development of metabolic syndrome, COPD, and certain cancers. Interventions for improving vitamin D levels include encouraging adequate D intake, adequate UV exposure, and supplementation. So this can be genetic. B12, same thing. Vitamin C, the same thing. So I take vitamin C on the regular. And then when we get into this test, the med check, this now includes a lot more drugs and also includes the different genes that we're going to see as the problem. So there are things that are an absolute no for me, right? Antipsychotics are an absolute no for me. I cannot take them because they have all these bad effects, right? Depression medications, thrombophilia medications, those might be okay, but we still want to be careful with them because when we look at my liver genetics, there are some issues. Anti-cancer agents, I've got a problem here. Methotrexate is one of the most common ones, and it says to use with caution. Same for all of these anticoagulants, right? The cardiovascular meds, it says they would be fine. Medications for antiemetics, I have to be careful with some of those. I can take ondansetron, but some people might not be able to, and this might be some of the problem that we're seeing in some of the women who are put on this drug while pregnant. When we talk about proton pump inhibitors, all of those are basically a no. Omeprazole is the most common one given. I wouldn't take one anyway, but endocrine metabolic agents. This can be a problem for people with diabetes. Anti-infectious agents and antifungals. Can't take them. So there's a lot of things here that we can say, hey, we might have a problem with these. And interestingly, I had a really negative effect to tramadol when I was taking it for a surgery, and oxycodone and hydrocodone and codeine. I've actually had a severe negative reaction to any of those. Low-dose naltrexone is the most prescribed thing right now in managing autoimmune disorders. And on me, it's a hey, let's wave a little flag here of caution. And then when we look at the antidepressants, a lot of these, look at how many are in the don't use. Do you know how many patients I see that are in amitriptyline or venlafaxine? So this is a test also that we can do as an add-on so that you have some idea of what you should and shouldn't be taking. For females, we've got the DNA estrogen test that can be added on. And again, we go through some of these issues. Some of them are new tested, including the factor V Leiden. Some of them are repeats, but understanding these genetics can understand how your body processes out estrogen and whether or not you're likely to get an estrogen dominant cancer. And that can be important for understanding whether or not your cycle is well regulated. You have all the symptoms of PMDD and how we can manage it. The DNA sport test is a great one for people who are trying to understand their responsiveness to exercise, when they should be exercising, and their risk for injury. And again, this one looks a little different. If you can see here, my injury risk is high. It takes me a moderate amount of time to recover. I'm a mixed type athlete. With both a focus on power and endurance, I can do great things. I just slowly metabolize caffeine. I have a low sensitivity to salt. My peak training time is morning. So these are all things that we can do with the genetic testing. There's even more that we can do with it now because this test has continued to evolve. One of the reasons that I use this testing versus using some of the other testing is that they are doing the genes that you can have an impact on and how you can focus on improving your overall health. The other thing that they guarantee is that they will never sell your data. Unlike some of the other genetic companies out there, um, they aren't going to sell your data. They are it would take a federal subpoena of a foreign entity to get your data. And they have already said that they would make them fight tooth and nail for that data because it's your health information. It is not supposed to be spread across the world or used in a way that could harm you. It is designed to help you. And that I think is really important when we're talking about transparency with a company, especially with what happened with companies based here in the US. And the fact that those companies disclosed that they were lying to people and telling them that their genetics were not what they were in the beginning because they wanted to decrease racial tension, basically. And I think that that's for a company reporting on your health, I think that that's wrong. So when you're looking at what you can do with your genetics, this is the way that I look at it. And this is the way that I try and help people and benefit people throughout. And we come up with a plan based on this. And there are companies that you can go to and have your genetic testing done, and they'll build you a supplement that's just for you. But then they say you have to have your genetics retested every 3 months, which isn't true. Your genetics don't change, your blood work does. To get your new supplement kit. When really we can look at your basic blood work and tell you whether or not you need to update supplements or cycle on or off something, because it's pretty easy to see in the blood work. If you have more questions about how you can get your genetic testing done, I did include a link where you can book an appointment. The genetic testing starts, like the base price is $550. If you want to go beyond that, it can range all the way up to $1,700. But that is like, I'm a female who's an athlete and also trying to get pregnant. That's that person. If you're the average person, right around $1,000, and we can get all of that testing plus a little bit more done because they are now offering more. Reach out to me if you have questions. Other places you can follow me, obviously, are Instagram and TikTok, and I hope to see you guys soon.